that was your original collecting yard, was it, historically?
Yeah, that was the original collecting yard as far as the up and over gate. And then we were guilty, we never allowed for the numbers we've grown to. So it would have been about 2005 we extended the yard out here.
Right.
We dug further into the bank, and then we were hit by bedrock slate sticking out. Even though we could put down good surfaces on it, it just wear away. Okay. We were getting a lot of white lines issue. Back of heels were getting damaged.
Right.
So that's when we went investigating to see how could we overcome it.
Okay, so this approach here is a key approach here. A lot of cows coming in here.
It is, yeah.
Every day.
Main flow at the moment, you're pretty much talking 50-50 off the two corners of the yard,
yeah,
where the cows come and go. Above this way, you're talking there's 95% of the ground up this way goes through the underpass.
Yeah.
Has to go up two steep ramps that were affected by bedrock.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the main reason they went in. And historically, that would have been 100% of summer grazing was all up that road. Okay. So it was. Okay.
So hills are a challenge here. I see you have a gate there. It allows a bit of flexibility, does it, on your hills?
It does, yeah. Yeah, we're up on top of a hill. We're not massively steep, but between the top of the yard and the bottom of the yard is 36 feet. So everything is working in steps down across, and we even have a couple of steps in the cow shed.
Yes.
When we saw how well they were working here, we actually broke off ramps in the cow shed, and we've put in steps just because the cows are more confident on it. It's a flat surface, and they're so happy stepping up and down.
Yes. How long are these steps in?
These went in 2005, so they did.
Okay, so you have a lot of experience with it, though.
Yeah. Good luck. This is primarily put in because it was a lot of traffic was coming up and down, so we said we'd start closest to the yard. If we're going to go spending money, we'd go where the heavy traffic is. And when we saw how well they worked the following year, then we went and put them in above the underpass.
Okay, so machinery and stuff like that, do you move machinery in a different road? Or?
Yeah, no, this end of the yard is solely for cows.
Yeah.
We don't follow cows with a quad or the gator either. We work batch latches, and we prefer to walk. You get to see the cows as well. Most of the time cows are coming in, you don't have to herd them. But tractors don't go up there, gators don't go up there at all.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why we went full width out steps. We are planning another underpass at the moment. We'll be talking to your team later about it. But what we're talking about doing with that one, because that's on a main traffic area, and also heading to heifer ground, there's going to be the gator going in and out 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
So what we're thinking of that is putting on the inside of the curve steps,
yes,
possibly 2 meters wide, and then having a ramp out further for the gator to run up and down.
Good.
So, yeah. So as we're getting along, we're starting to learn how to maximise the flow of the cows off them.
Yes, understood.
Yeah.
So before you had your underpass, was it a big job crossing cows?
It was, yeah. They said we had half the grazing ground traditionally was across the road. So yeah, it was myself and my father that was on the farm at that time. We were milking roughly around 90 cows at the time when we started thinking of the underpass.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was cows used to come up the lane and then stand, and then after milking, as soon as the last row was on, one of us would come up and let them off. And yeah, it was we were counting roughly an hour a day crossing roads between letting cows out and bringing them back in. So, and
I suppose lameness as well is an issue then, as if you're holding cows as well as you're losing time. There's other negatives.
It is, yeah. It took a bit of, I suppose, convincing my father that this was what we needed to do. The road is incredibly quiet. We used to just put up 2 bits of bale and twine, go off up, collect the cows and bring them home.
Yeah.
And the twines would be left alone. But it was time originally why we went at the underpass, and it was only the following year then we suddenly saw there was a massive drop in lameness.
Right.
But what we did actually, the year coming up to convincing my father we needed to put in the underpass, I started measuring milk yield on different paddocks.
Yes.
And the fact that the cows were standing here for anything from 10 minutes to an hour before they crossed the road, the field directly across the road we were losing 0.6 of a litre, and paddock 15 on the other side of the hill we were losing 1.8 litres every time we grazed those ones, compared to grazing the field here right beside the parlour.
Okay, yeah, no weights here.
Yeah. So just on milk yield and labour, I think the underpass was going to pay for itself in about 3.5 years.
Okay, yeah.
These were figures I put to my father as soon as he saw the payoff as well. And then also there was a mindset that we'd put the money into sheds that would make life easier. And the argument was we'd be using this 10 months of the year. We'd be only using the shed maybe 4.
Yeah.
So it just all stacked up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people find that a challenge, putting money into grazing infrastructure. If
Yeah.
they can see it in the side in a shed or something closer to the yard, they nearly feel it's easier to spend it there.
Indeed, yes.
And when it's further out from the yard, it's kind of a bit of a mind block to spend in.
Exactly, but it definitely changes the whole flow of the farm. Suddenly you have an extra, what's across the road, all that is accessible straight off the parlour gate.
Yes.
There's no, cows just walk off, they're in the field. You don't have to worry about where they are and who's going to cross the road. And it doesn't matter if it's a Sunday morning or a Wednesday afternoon.
You have huge freedom with it.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so you have your effluent tank here?
Yeah, the underpass has progressed over the last number of years. When I went in originally in 2010, we just had a small soak hole. It wasn't even 2,000 gallons or 200 gallons in size. And we thought and labour was getting a bit more tight. We realised that we weren't going to be standing there with a slurry tanker scraping in and sucking out and scraping. So we've put in the 2,000 gallon tank here.
Yeah.
Back, actually the same year we done the steps, and we laid extra concrete as well.
Okay.
We did come across springs in the underpass, so during the winter months the springs open up. The track was getting very dirty, adding to lameness then as well. So same again, we said we'd put the money where we could get the greatest returns. If we could keep cows healthy, keep them walking, keep them moving, we were going to get a good return. So we've concreted it out. We've put down some rubber mats to see how that works. But at the moment, cow flow is so good that they never stop anymore. Previous to that, they were stopping because they didn't want to walk through the dirt. So now they just flow on through.
And why the rubber mat, say, just within the underpass itself?
It was a rubber mat that we took up off cubicles when we were changing sheds, and we threw it down there to see would it work. The idea was that if stones were coming off the roadway and they were standing on a stone on the concrete,
right.
It would bruise the sole.
Yeah.
And look, it has made a big work, but we haven't seen the significance to do the rest of the roadway out either.
Okay.
So we're happy enough with that. The steps then above it, once they went in, then that was the cow flow completely sorted.
You installed the main underpass in 2010?
That's correct, yes.
You used, say, a ramp made of stone or whatever you made as best you could to ground?
Did, yeah. We dug into the bank. It was only when we were digging the underpass that we found out that we actually had a hard veins of slate in it.
Yeah, same issue as blowing the creek.
Same issue again, yeah. It is, most of the bedrock around here is a soft shale, but there is slate creeping out through it. We hit one vein about halfway up. Just as we look up, just near the top of the underpass, you had one sharp vein sticking out there.
Very unforgiving for cows.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Oh, we spent a day with a rock breaker on a 22-ton machine trying to crack it down.
Yeah.
But very hard on cows' feet.
Okay, so for 6 years you used the ramp.
Yeah.
And so what your issues were? What was it? You were just slow to go up
yeah,
it?
we were starting to know. Main issues were the back of the cows' feet were wearing out.
Yeah.
Going up was no problem, but it was when they were going down, they'd put down their foot and then they'd slip maybe 2-3 foot down.
Yeah.
And it was the back of the heel as they were sliding down that it was wearing the back of the pads. And then that was getting into issues with infection, but also stones cracking the white line and then getting out in the heel itself.
Right, yeah.
So that's when we realised we had to do something to overcome that, the ramps on both spots.
Okay, very good. So 2016 you decided to put in the steps.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And
was that much of a job?
No, we had done the trial work down at the collecting yard. What we decided working with myself and the builder, we decided that the easiest way was to pour steps on site.
Yes.
So we got 4x4 timbers. So we had this part out to here with the retaining walls. So we put down our first timber, pegged it on both sides with a sleeve on the retaining pins.
Yeah.
We measured back. These ones I think are actually 820.
Yes.
So we measured back 820, got it level, and then pinned and put in the next timber. And we slowly stepped them all up. So as the timber was here and we were pouring, we had probably had about anything from 50 to 100 mil underneath, depending on bedrock. And the concrete, we started on the bottom one, worked our way up, and the concrete came underneath the timber. So every step is linked in together.
Right, they're well tied in.
They're well tied in.
Yeah.
The one thing we had to watch out for was that the concrete wasn't too runny. We didn't want it flowing underneath timbers.
Yeah.
So look, it was a bit of experience with the builder and a bit of trial and error, but we got it working. poured it in 2 days. So we poured one lot up and then got the next one.
Very good. So just height for people to, roughly your height is?
Height on all our steps is 100 mil.
Okay.
Or 4 inches in old language.
And
I believe these ones are...
They're nearly 3 feet long there. And did you pour the steps flat? Are they flat, or is there a slope coming this way slightly?
We poured them flat knowing that the concrete would move a small bit. So there is a tiniest little fall on them.
Yeah.
But we wanted them level, so we did.
Okay. So did you back your concrete truck down, or did you use a loader to fill them?
We were able to bring it right in beside.
Okay.
Just using the chutes, we poured it off sideways.
Right.
We had plenty of guys on duty that day with us. And as we were pouring it, there was one on either side just pulling it back and forth, levelling it off, then move up onto the next one.
Right. And the tap finished then?
Tap finished. We had to be careful as we were tapping because we didn't want the concrete to move on from one step to the other.
Yeah.
So nice and gently just started at the bottom and worked our way up along the top.
Yeah.
And just had it good and stiff.
Yeah. So how long did you leave before you put your cows in it then?
We done this during the dry period.
Yeah.
We done it. I suppose it was probably around the first week of January, just when all the companies were coming back, and probably cows didn't walk out till the first week of February. We start on the calving about the 5th of February, so we did.
And adjusted pretty quickly to the cows?
They did, yeah. It's unbelievable. We thought when we put in the first steps, we'd have to come along and encourage the cows to go up along and get them trained to it. But no, once, I suppose as well, I was lucky they'd been inside, they'd just calved, they knew they were going to grass, and they just flowed up the steps.
Yeah.
No question. As soon as the first lot were out, bring them back in, there was a small bit of hesitation, but when you watch the cows come in this evening, there's no hesitation. I think they're nearly as comfortable going down as they are going up.
They have full confidence in it.
Yeah, you can see the confidence in them. They're just happy on them, so they are.
Do they stay in the middle, the outside, or is there any particular pattern?
Because we're going straight, it doesn't matter where they go.
Yeah.
We see no difference. But when down at the collecting yard where you had the slight bend going to the right, we would find that they tend to go on the inside.
Yeah.
There's no difference in depth of the steps, but they do seem to go to the inside of the curve.
I see. And this is some of the stone you were contending with then, is it?
Yeah, this is the bedrock we'd have underneath us.
Yeah.
So quite, as you see, the veins are straight up. So when they're broken at surface level, you just have that sharp razor edge on top.
Yeah. How many steps roughly?
I think there is a 38 in this section, so there is.
Okay, very good.
We did make a slight change to the plan once we got up to this height. We decided that one of the main problems with concrete and cows, and you'll see here, this hasn't been cleaned since last year, you get the odd small stone as cows come in. So we went a bit higher with the step, that the cows actually have to lift their foot to get in on the concrete now.
Okay.
So we generally don't get too many stones on.
Yeah.
Also then to divert the water from the roadway off back out.
Okay,
well,
so that has helped, has it?
It has, yeah.
Yeah, and is it getting the cow to lift up her leg a bit more, or is she consciously lifting up her leg and leaving the stone behind, or is it just kicking?
The extra step makes her lift her foot that little bit higher.
Yeah, until drop.
Generally, you drop them, so you get very little stones in on the concrete then after that. And that's where any of the damage we get now is usually from a bit of stone bruising or something.
Yeah. It's something that's quite common in New Zealand, I think, in collecting yards as well.
It is, and
it
was from that we saw the trick of putting in that extra step.
Yeah.
It was from Neil Chesterton's, one of his talks, that we saw that.
Right, yeah, good. Yeah, so very good. And so look, then they have a fine roadway then back to the paddocks.
Exactly, yeah. Nicely, same as every farm, we need to keep our roadway surfaced fairly well.
Yeah.
Cow flow is a big part, but also then, like I said, if you have issues with lameness, it knocks on to everything. It can reduce your time walking in, it'll reduce your milk yield, and at this time of the year as well, fertility as well. So.
Yeah, it all plays a big part in the whole circle.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Brian, when you were, say, constructing this, did you make extra provisions for services? We
did, yeah. We realised that you don't get too much a chance to open up the road every time you want to put down water pipes and stuff. So we put 2 4-inch Waven pipes on each side of the culverts. So here we have the main water line going through. So when we got in the boys to lay the new water system, instead of having to go and make the effort and get moles to go underneath the Harbic Adam, we just told them that there were spare pipes here at the underpass, and all they had to do was run it clean through.
Right.
And same with the electric fences there as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to spreading slurry, the contractor just prefers to pull the pipe straight through the main culvert.
Okay. And say your water pipe then, is that have you a looped water system from Terra or someone?
It is, yeah. It's there's 2 loops, one below the road, one above it, and then that's the feed line going straight through. So it is.
Yeah.
It's a 44 mil loop system, so it is.
Okay, good pressure everywhere.
Good pressure. We had to put in a slightly larger pump. We have a reservoir right beside the milking parlour, but because we're driving up and over the far side of the hill, there's roughly from the parlour to the top of the hill, there's roughly 160 feet, but then from the top of the hill down to the bottom, there's a drop of 300 feet.
Yeah.
So we just had to allow for the extra provisions of getting the pump to drive the water that distance.
Big swings in pressure, so.
There is, yeah.
Gradients.
There's pressure reducers then once you get to the top of the hill, because we can actually blow off ball cocks at the bottom of the hill. So
right,
we can.
okay, yeah,
So.
yeah, good. Very good.
Yeah.
Say your milking times then, say in the afternoon, Brian, what time, say, do the cows come out of the paddock at typically?
Cows come out at 10 to 3. The main idea is to have the parlour running by 3:30.
Okay.
I do very few evening milkings. We're lucky, we have a farm that's able to justify having staff with us. We have a very good team, but the one thing we want to do is make sure that we have a comfortable working environment. I do probably 90-95% of the morning milkings. It suits me, I live on farm.
Yeah.
And then whoever's working with me, they come in roughly around 8 o'clock. They do the evening milking, but generally they're off the farm between about 5:30 every evening.
Yeah, it's an important balance there if you can get home early.
Exactly. Like, we're lucky the girl that works with us now, she's getting back to rugby training. She's got to travel to get down to practice. So she knows that she's not going to miss a training or any of the events because the cows are late coming in.
Yeah.
So that's one great thing about the bachelor as well. The cows are trained, they know once it gets to that time of the evening,
Yeah.
there's always one starting kind of watching the gap. As soon as it's open, there's a nice steady flow of them all running in.
So you've quite a long farm and you've, say, 300 plus cows, so
Yeah.
it takes time to get in the cows. So you use a bat latch to let the cows off early, that they're walking in themselves?
Yes, yeah. And it's one great thing about, with the underpass, you don't have to worry about the roads either.
Yeah.
But like, if the cows are at the far end of the farm over the bottom of paddock 15, they have to climb 300 feet to get to the top of the hill. That's a very slow walk, getting cows up in the morning or anything.
And you don't push them with a quad or anything then?
No, there's no, we're about 1.5 years on the batch latch now. Yeah, we just know that, look, in the morning, as I'm made to get 20 minutes extra sleep, I get up, the cows are generally, the first ones are starting to get to the yard. I go up through the paddocks, and I generally meet the last one probably halfway up along, and then just walk in nice and
gentle. And you walk in, are you walking for the cows yourself?
I'm walking, I walk, and very seldom we follow with the quad. Just nice, relaxed atmosphere around with the cows. Don't want to rush them or anything. So yeah, the people that work with me, at first they don't like going off the idea of having to walk off across the paddocks, but by the time at the end of their placement or they get used to it, they start to relax and enjoy the walk in with the cows. You see them walking in with their arms up over the last one, petting and scratching her as they go. So.
Has it always been your policy, or?
Yeah, it's pretty much always been the policy.
Yeah.
I suppose, look, I enjoy the world around us. It's nice walking in on a nice quiet morning, appreciating the wildlife and talking to Izzy, the dog, as you go along. So yeah, it's a nice part of the day. I appreciate it anyway.
Yeah, good. Yeah.